let's do my first ever YouTube Q&A. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know I love doing these on my Instagram stories, but I've never done one here. So let's do it. I think it'll be fun because we'll be able to get into these questions in a much deeper way than just what a little Instagram story allows for me to say. So I'm going to read the questions that I have here for you in advance in case there's one that you want to skip ahead to or skip over, whatever. So these are the questions I'm going to be answering. Number 1, would you ever do a long juice fast? Number 2, would you ever want to live off grid? Number 3, what's the most important tool in preparing for a home birth? 4, do you eat differently when you're pregnant or breastfeeding? Number 5, why do you think co-sleeping is so controversial? Number 6, what would you do if your son wanted to eat meat? And number 7, why don't you ever see a doctor? So those are my questions. I'm just going to hop right into it. So number 1, would you ever do a long juice fast? Short answer is no, absolutely not. Stick with me. With that being said, I'm not saying that I'm altogether opposed to long juice fasts. I'm not denying that people have had good experiences doing long juice fasts, but personally, for myself and what I have seen with clients is that there is more wisdom and benefit in lifestyle change, learning how to eat a consistently sustainable, healthy diet rather than a fast or a detox or a cleanse, just yields better results. It just does. The problem I think with fasting and detoxing is that it's this sort of separate thing from the rest of our lives. And so it's like, I'm on a cleanse or I'm on a detox. And what a lot of people don't learn through that process is how to live regularly in their day to day, right? Because eventually, no matter how long your juice fast is, it has to end. It will end. I know people who have done year-long juice fasts, which is crazy long. And after that year, it ended. It had to end. And if they didn't learn, because they didn't through that process, how to prepare and eat and nourish their bodies with food, regular food, they end up oftentimes gaining a lot of weight back or going back to old habits or just not finding the results that they ultimately want. And so I'm a huge advocate for making small, sustainable changes that you can maintain for ever, right? Learning recipes, learning habits, learning things that don't have you sort of on the bandwagon, off the bandwagon mentality. There's I think, like I said, a lot of wisdom in that and in doing shorter juice fasts or cleanses. And so if you do feel to do a juice fast or a cleanse, I recommend doing 3 days or 7 days and then going back to eating and then going back onto the juice fast and then going back to eating. And people get really, really good results doing that. And in that process, again, they're learning how to be healthy in their day-to-day normal lives. So that's my answer to that. Not a big fan of long juice fasts. Think it's a great sales tactic. Think it's a great do this and it'll cure your everything and you'll never have another problem ever again. But believe me, from someone who works with many people post detox, that's sort of the coach I am. I'm like the post detox, post cleanse coach. And again, there's a time and a place for those things. And it's not saying that people don't learn or experience valuable healing through those processes, but it's not the finish line, right? Until you learn to embody health as something that's much greater and deeper than the foods that you consume, and until you learn habits that you feel excited about and that work for you, that keep you feeling joyful and satisfied and not deprived, that you can maintain for, like I said, ever, you haven't arrived. So anyway, That's my answer to that. Okay, question number 2. Would you ever want to live off grid? So, if you don't know my story, I have lived off grid a few times. I lived off grid in Hawaii for about 7 months years ago, and I lived off grid again in Ecuador, both in sort of raw vegan fruit growing permaculture communities. And I loved those experiences. They were deeply meaningful to me in a variety of ways. But as far as my future, I don't see myself wanting to live off grid. I like modern things. I like to live in the world. You know, people often ask me as well if I'd ever like to move somewhere maybe more tropical and start my own community. And no, I don't. Like I said, I have lived in communities before and don't regret it, learned a lot from it. Very grateful for those experiences. But there's a lot of challenges to living and sharing resources with other people. And I think a lot of people go into it, myself included, with these sort of rose-colored glasses that you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people, and you're going to all be on the same mission for, growing fruit and living peacefully and homeschooling your children and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work out that beautifully for people, places, but I've also seen it not work out and it being rather ugly in some cases. So no, I don't long to live in a community space with other people or to live off grid. I long to create a space where my home is a sanctuary for others. If you know me, you know that I host retreats out of my home right now and see myself doing that for a very long time. I host private retreats as well. I often have friends, travelers, people that I know passing through and staying with us for a while, and sort of love having an open door policy, I guess, and having lots of people coming and going, but ultimately having the final say that this is my home, this is our family home. And if I don't want to see anybody and I don't want anyone here, that I get to say that. And that's just how it is. I also love my space. When I lived in communities, everything was shared. The kitchens were shared. Sometimes I couldn't find the Vitamix blender when I wanted to make a smoothie, or someone broke something and wasn't willing to replace it. And you just kind of had to have a conversation while you were making dinner because there were other people around. And I sort of just love making dinner in my own head sometimes, or just with my son, or, and the times I want to make dinner with other people, having other people over to make dinner with them. Anyway, I'm kind of not exactly answering the off-grid topic question, but the off-grid community thing is all one in my mind. But no, I don't see myself wanting to live off-grid in any long-term sense. That's not saying that I wouldn't do another several months somewhere to have an experience. But I don't see myself buying land and wanting to live off-grid. Okay, anyway, number 3, what's the most important tool in preparing for a home birth? This right here. It's our most important thing in anything, is our minds, our perspectives, our beliefs, what fears we're bringing in to a situation. That is by far the most important thing in preparing for wherever you're birthing, at home, at a birth center, at a hospital. What are you expecting? What do you believe? What do you know to be true about your body and about birth, about how you were created? Those are by far the most important things ever, 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 ever. I know a lot of people who have had amazing birth experiences and a lot of people who have not. And I think in a lot of those cases, people who've not had great birth experiences is because they weren't super grounded and confident in themselves and their body. They didn't really understand physiological birth and all the things to expect. in the labor and birth process, and so they were scared or manipulated, fear-mongered into making choices for themselves and their baby that they ultimately regret. And so I think that when we get really, really, really solid in who we are, what we believe, what we're choosing to be true, then we have a lot greater chance of realizing that outcome. I often say I became so aligned to the reality of being a free birthing mom that there was no other possibility available. And I mean that. There was no other possibility. When you embody something so deeply, like you become that thing, you visualize yourself in the process, going through the motions, having the end result that you desire. You have to. You have to, because everything that exists out here first starts in here. So you make it real in here. You make it real as real can be, and then it has to become real in our physical world. So what do you believe? What do you expect? What fears do you have? Lean into them, explore them, undo them, work through them, work with a coach, work whatever you need to do to overcome your fears. And again, this isn't just true for birth. I think this is true in all of life, because anything that we desire is being kept from us currently because of something going on up here, some belief we have, some I'm not good enough, I can't, it's not for me, it's not in my genetics, whatever the story is. And those things will be true. It will be true for you in your body and in your life, so long it is as it is true in your mind. So change your mind and change your life. Do you eat differently when you're pregnant? Yes and no. I mean, I still eat a lot of the same foods, so I find myself, both pregnancies, I'm currently pregnant right now, have been different. I had a lot more trouble eating for my first pregnancy, and so I just sort of was eating whatever I could stomach. Sometimes I would just have like a bowl of popcorn for dinner, because that was just the only thing I could stomach, or just plain white rice, like no sauce, no salt, no pepper, no nothing, just plain white rice for dinner. Those were times. But I find myself having a lot easier time eating this time around. But the one thing I do notice is a desire for more fats and more proteins. I normally eat a very carbohydrate rich diet, and I love that, and that feels good. But since getting pregnant with my first, and then through the breastfeeding and postpartum, and now being pregnant again, I noticed that I just desire a lot more density and don't feel as satiated. Just eating a lot of plain fruit meals or veggie rich meals without a good amount of fat or amino acids in there. And so that in that way, I definitely eat different. And I think that makes good sense. But ultimately, I don't eat different in a like logical, oh, I'm pregnant, I know I should eat different. It's, I'm pregnant, how do I feel? And I notice that I feel like I need this. And I notice that people often get very stuck in ways of eating because something has worked for them before, or someone has told them that this is the right way to eat, this is how you should eat in order to heal, or when you're pregnant, or whatever. But the only way that we ever need to eat is the way that we want to eat, the ways that bring us joy to eat. And so that's the only thing that I ever allow to guide me, ever, for the last 10 years, is what do I want to eat? And sometimes I notice that all I want to eat is watermelon during the summer. And sometimes I notice that I want to have a lot of rice and veggies and tofu and that, and normally I notice that I want a lot of both of those things. And so that really works for me. But again, I encourage you, if you're living, not just if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or anything, but if you are alive, to tune into what your body wants. And And that seems like maybe such a simple thing, but maybe it seems like such a very difficult thing. Like, I don't know what my body wants. How am I supposed to know? My body wants donuts. Um, I like to encourage people to start very small. So for breakfast, if you could have anything in the world for breakfast that you feel would nourish you, would make you feel good, would give you the energy that you need in order to go on a long walk in the woods or through the city or wherever you like to take your walks, and would bring you joy, like you would eat it and you think, yum, that was so good. It would be all of those things together. And it wasn't something you read in a book, and it wasn't something I told you, or it wasn't something that someone else on social media told you. It was just something that you purely wanted. What would it be? What would it be? Can you trust yourself to make a decision for you for breakfast, just one meal out of millions of meals you will eat over the course of your life? Can you trust yourself to choose what you want to eat? I think you can. And it's just practicing that over and over and over again. I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to keep eating what I want. And after you feel you get the breakfast thing down, move on to lunch and allow this process to be slow and intuitive, and allow yourself to maybe make some mistakes and just keep going. That's the only way that we ever learn, is to just keep going and to keep paying attention to ourselves. How does my body feel? Did that satisfy me? Do I feel happy after eating that? Do I feel like I wish I had something else? Practice, practice, practice. You can trust yourself. Okay, question number 5. Why do you think co-sleeping is so controversial? Oh, it's so crazy. I have posted a few posts over the last year, I guess now, about co-sleeping, and they're some of my most controversial, viral posts that I have ever made. Every single time. And I'm dumbfounded really every time, because it's so very obvious to me to co-sleep. And when I say obvious, I don't mean that like if you have made another choice, or if you're making another choice, you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But for me, it's the biological norm. I mean, women all over the world co-sleep, and most of the world that has not been fear-mongered by the medical system, co-sleeps, and they would look at you like you were crazy if you didn't. So why don't we? Well, I think that back to the last point that I made, we've lost so much of a connection to our intuition. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to decide what to eat for breakfast. I mean, profoundly, really. People do not trust themselves to eat breakfast in the way that they genuinely desire to eat breakfast. We have lost such a profound connection to ourselves that we don't know if eating fruits and vegetables are healthy. What if it has too much sugar? What if it has too many oxalates? What if this? What if that? We are just so very disconnected. And co-sleeping is a great example of how we have lost a connection to our natural instincts. You know, like I said, so many women all over the world, countless, far more women sleep with their babies than have them in separate rooms in cribs. And I just think that it's just sad. I don't know how else to say it. I just think it's sad, not just the choices themselves, not just the co-sleeping or not co-sleeping, but the fact that we as humanity, as women, aren't living based off of true choices for ourselves. And that is so profoundly connected to why people are sick. I often say that health is connection to self and disease is disconnection from self. There is no health apart from knowing ourselves. There is no health apart from self-awareness. There isn't. That is what health is. Health is us being us, both in a biological sense, right? In a natural living in line with natural rhythms and natural law, and also in a very personalized sense. So me having what I want uniquely for breakfast, or me doing the work that I do in the world that is mine, that comes out of me, sitting here doing this video right now, instead of being a chef at a sushi restaurant, which sounds like a great job, but is not me, right? It doesn't pour out of me. It's not who I am. And so the disconnection from our true selves, our biological and authentic expression selves, is the root of disease. And so I feel sad. I feel sad that so many people are so disconnected to such a degree, and I was too for a good portion of my life, that we don't know ourselves and trust ourselves well enough to choose what we want for breakfast, or to sleep with our babies in the ways that we feel to sleep with them. And it's just sad. So what's the question? Why do you think co-sleeping is so controversial? Because we have forgotten the truth of who we are. We've forgotten biological norms, and we have given over our power, our thoughts, our thinking, our decision making to so-called experts, doctors or child rearing experts or whoever, and have lost our natural sense of what's good and true as mothers. You know, I think it becomes controversial too because of other ways that we are living misaligned. So in so many other places around the world, women they're not on sleep medication, they're not on antidepressants, they're not on anti-anxiety, they're not on postpartum medications. They're not brutally exhausted because they live and mother solo a lot of times while the man or husband works, or maybe he stays home, or maybe they're solo parenting, and we sleep on beds that are much softer than the floor, or pillows or blankets, or there's a lot of things. I kind of think about it when it's in a similar way why people, one of the other controversial things that I share about is sunscreen, or why I don't use sunscreen, or why I freely like to let all the sun on my body all the time, and I'm not worried about skin cancer. And there's so many factors that go into, well, I just don't wear sunscreen. There's the way that I eat. There's my relationship and belief with the sun. There's the fact that I am in the sun many times throughout the year, and I don't live somewhere or where I only see the sun 4 months out of the year, or I work inside all day long and then I only get to see the sun maybe once a week for a couple hours. There's just so much to all of those things. Is this making sense? It's not just stop wearing sunscreen and go out in the sun and burn to a crisp. It's evaluate whether the fullness of your life is it attuned to natural rhythms, including the sun, right? We are meant to be outside consistently, regularly, and we're meant to have a relationship with the sun all year round. And we're meant to eat fruits and vegetables and foods that come from the earth, that nourish our body, that have natural vitamins and antioxidants that protect us from burning from the sun. And we're meant to put things, or really not put things, on our skin that don't cause chemical reactions from the sun, from lotions to sunscreens to makeup. So there's just so many factors that go into why I don't use sunscreen, and why my relationship to the sun is healthy, and why I have made choices over the years to align my life in a way that I can have this healthy relationship with the sun. And it's the same with co-sleeping. I don't take medications. I don't allow myself to get overly exhausted. I ask for support. I'm grateful for the support that I have. I waited until I was older and more established in my life to have children, so that I wasn't in a position where I was stressed and a single parent, or, and again, this is no judgment or anything on anyone else for their different choices, but we have to understand that everything works all together. And a lot of times co-sleeping, in cases where co-sleeping doesn't go so well, it's because someone is not living in line with natural design, and then accidents happen. But by and large, those who are, it's a beautiful, easeful, even extremely beneficial experience for both mother and child. And so I think that we have to reevaluate our lives. All of us have to reevaluate our lives. And I know that it's not always easy. We don't always have support, and systems that are in place don't always make it the easiest thing ever, but easy or not, it's not impossible. My life looks very different now than it did 15 years ago. I was living much, much, much less aligned with my natural design, human design. And I've taken steps, little steps, not big leaps, not massive changes in most cases, but little steps over the years in order to bring myself more aligned with the truth of who I am. And in doing so, I have found that natural things like co-sleeping or sun, I have a beautiful relationship with, and they're not risky because of the whole context of my life. So I hope that made sense. I'm gonna keep going. Okay, what would you do if your son wanted to eat meat? I will let him eat meat. Like, I've said before that my choices for my son now are the choices that I feel are best for him, while he is fully dependent on me to make choices for him. But there will come a day, really not very long from now, I don't know exactly when he will be able to make more independent choices for himself, and I will let him. Of course, I will let him. I'm not interested in controlling him or forcing him to be something or to believe something or to have certain values. My morals and values and perspectives are mine. And as any parent does, we share those with our children, right? We all are sharing our values, our perspectives, what we want and believe in with our children in a variety of ways. And ultimately, our children are their own people, and they will make decisions for themselves that are theirs. And some of those decisions will probably be like ours. They will adopt those. They will see the value in them because of the way they were raised. And in other ways, they won't. And I think the very best way to raise children is to not force or control or manipulate them to be or think or do anything other than themselves. And so I'm raising my son and this baby that's in my womb right now. I will raise them to be free thinkers, independent choice makers, confident in their intuition to have what they want to have for breakfast and to sleep with their babies as they feel to sleep with them, and to do all the choices that we all make all the time in their own autonomous, confident way. And so, yeah, if Cedar wants to eat something, then I will not stand in his way. I don't think that I would ever buy or cook him meat. I don't see myself ever doing that. But if we were at a restaurant or we were over at his grandparents' house or something and he wanted to try something, or a friend's house or wherever, any of the places that we go, yeah, I'm not throwing myself in front of him and telling him no, because that is profoundly against what I believe my ultimate value is in how I'm raising him, which is for him to be an independent person, fully confident in his decision-making abilities. So that's my take on that. Okay, I'm just gonna, sorry, I feel like I just talk a lot and I want to get through all of these. But I don't feel like I'm that much of a talker, but if you watch these videos, you might say otherwise. Anyway, number 7, why don't you ever see a doctor? This probably should be like a whole video in and of itself, but to be brief, I just don't see any value in it for myself. My perspective is that doctors are looking for something wrong. They're looking for a problem. This doesn't make doctors bad people. It's just the paradigm in and of itself. It's like, what are you doing when you get a mammogram? What are you doing when you get a colonoscopy? What are you doing when you get a checkup? It's like you're looking for a problem. We're making sure there's no problems. And that's just profoundly not the way that I choose to live, not just in terms of my health, but my life, right? Why are we living lives oriented towards problem finding? Right? Why? Why would we do that when we could live our lives oriented towards the most beautiful outcomes, the most optimistic possibilities, the most better than anything I could ever imagine thing is going to happen. So I choose to live my life just fully expecting and trusting and making choices every day, all day, that feel nourishing and good and healthy, and not to live within the paradigm of there's something wrong with me and I need to go make sure to catch it before something gets really wrong with me. It's just totally not how my brain works at all. And so I feel there's no value or use for me in seeing any type of doctor that would just be looking for a problem. There's so much more I could say about that. So much more. If you'd like me to do a separate video on that, let me know. Or if you'd like me to do a video about any of these questions in greater depth or any other questions, leave them below. I'm just conscious of how long this video is getting and I want to respect your time. And so I'm going to wrap it up there. But yes, let me know. I'll make another video. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.